are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, everyone. The Southern Alliance for Clean Energy is pleased to host this webinar as part of Southeast Coastal Climate Network's webinar series. My name is Chris Carnevale, and I'm the Coastal Climate and Energy Coordinator for SACE and the manager of the Southeast Coastal Climate Network. Thank you for being with us today. It's your interest and support that makes our work possible. Before we get started today, I'd like to take just a moment to review the basic functions of the control panel on your screen. If you'd like to minimize your control panel, just select the orange arrow in the left-hand corner and then select it again to bring it back up. To ensure sound quality, all attendee lines have been muted, but we encourage you to participate and ask questions by typing them in the questions box on your control panel. We'll answer any questions at the very end of the presentation. As you can see on the current slide, the Southeast Coastal Climate Network is a coalition of individuals and organizations spanning the coastal Southeast who are working on coastal responses to climate change. We have members as far north as Maryland and as far west as Louisiana. The purpose of the network is to bring voices together, to trade information, and to synergize our efforts. The Southeast Coastal Climate Network is hosted under the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. Our largest tool is our group site website, which is an online platform that enables members to send group emails, post discussion topics or relevant news to discussion boards, and use a shared group calendar. If you're interested in joining the network and using these tools, please just visit the web address on the screen now, seccn.groupsite.com, and click Join this group now. For those of you on this webinar who are already members, I want to encourage you to use these tools to help get your message out. The purpose of the group is to encourage communication and collaboration, and you have a receptive group of people at your fingertips. So please don't be shy and do use these web tools. Another great tool we have is our webinar series, of which today's webinar is a part. To introduce our speaker for today, I'm going to turn it over to SACE's Executive Director, Steve Smith.
Great. Thank you, Chris. And it is an honor today to be able to introduce Bob Berkowitz, who is the founder and president of Eco America. Bob is a true leader in the community that is addressing climate change and trying to come up with positive path solutions for addressing this, and he has a great deal of experience. He's been an entrepreneur with a number of years of experience in with business and direct marketing and manufacturing organizations. He has served on the board of Environmental Defense and also as a trustee for the Sierra Club Foundation. And Bob has a BS degree from social thought from the Lake Forest College and an MBA from the Lake Forest Graduate School of Management. My experience with Bob is that I was honored to be asked to be part of a leadership circle that is part of Momentous, which he is going to talk to you about today, that Eco America is leading. And Bob has great passion and commitment to this and has pulled together a great team in Eco America, and we're really honored to have him. One other thing I'll share with you, Bob is an avid distance cyclist who's done a number of treks across continents, literally, across the world, and is enthusiastic in that also. So Bob, let me turn it over to you to share information about Eco America and Momentous with folks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Aaron and Chris and Steve, for that gracious introduction. I'm going to dig right into it so that we can have as much time as possible toward the end for any kind of conversation. You all know about the realities of climate change, carbon in the atmosphere, and the declining ice pack, and the impacts that are now being felt and you can read about it in the news daily in America. And for those of us who are really concerned about it, you kind of wonder why we're like the ticket taker in the left window on this slide, wondering why most Americans, if it is such a real, serious, and important issue, how come people don't get it, and how can we be more effective in engaging them in climate and sustainability solutions? If people know anything about climate change, they know that it's a political issue, and some people think that solving climate change is going to destroy America itself, and some people think that not solving climate change is going to destroy America. But this conflict really keeps a lot of people from engaging in the issue. In addition to the conflict, there are a variety of things that we categorize as motivated avoidance. psychological factors that keep people from addressing climate change, just like fear of danger, and then other things like techno optimism, that they know that America just has always solved every problem, and when this becomes serious enough, we will solve that too. And when they don't see some of our national leaders, like let's say Bill Gates with the Gates Foundation addressing it as a priority for the world and for America, they don't feel like it's a priority for them. But the other biggest factor that we have, in addition to the politics and the psychological factors, is just the raw economic factors. These are the 15 largest companies in the world, and you'll notice that almost all of them, except for 2, are engaged in either making fossil fuels or burning fossil fuels. And that's, that first number, Royal Dutch Shell, 484, 489, that's $484 billion of revenue that one company had in 1 year last year. So there's a lot of economic power that is causing us to maintain our status quo. Another thing that we'll get into a little bit more is the concept of solutions for climate change. We have to have the technology, the science to understand it, the solar and wind technology and other renewables to be able to address it. We have to be able to have the politics and policy to address it, and then we have to have people. Here at Eco America and with Momentous, we focus pretty much exclusively on the people side, because if you look around, you'll note that technology-wise, renewables are becoming competitive. Solar power has, the price of solar photovoltaic has fallen 99% in the past 25 years, and it's going to continue to go down. And if you look at the graphs on the left, the turquoise line is the graph of the cost of wind energy, utility scale wind energy in America, which basically, over the past 4 or 5 years, well over half of the new utility energy that's been installed in America, and of course virtually all of the personal utility and industrial stuff, the vast majority of that has been in renewables too. But we have the low-cost solutions, and they're only getting lower cost in spite of the low cost of natural gas. We're putting out a lot of renewable energy right now. So we've got that kind of technology. There have been 2 laboratories for policy on a large scale in North America. One of them has been British Columbia, where they implemented back in 2007 a carbon sales tax and carbon tax, and in the ensuing 6 years, the per capita use of petroleum fuels in British Columbia has fallen 20% versus the rest of Canada, and at the same time, their economy has grown faster. Here in the United States, we have the RGGI program in New England. 9 states have a cap and trade program, and the graph on the left is the growth of the economy. Again, the New England economies are growing faster. In the meantime, over the last 6-7 years, their per capita use, their per capita emissions have fallen by 30% versus the rest of America. So we know we have policy solutions that, if we can implement them, can have a huge impact on the problem really quite quickly. The question that we have is, how do we engage people? And of course, climate change has gone from being a remote, distant thing, 2050, 2100, to something that's happening around us today. But still, people are not making the connections to the abstract thing of climate and weather. They will make connections more closely with the things that matter to them, like the economy and jobs and healthcare, which this is a graph of Pew's annual public policy priorities for America. As Steve mentioned, we are working on something called Momentous here, and we're trying to build institutional leadership, public support, and collective action for climate solutions in America. And we're doing that by developing a big network of national trusted leaders in various sectors who will lead by example and engage others in society to do the same. These people are in higher education, in healthcare, in faith, in communities themselves, and then let's see, healthcare in 5 different sectors. I think I missed one in that list. So we're building up these groups, and then we are building around them. We're building programs. In the upper left here, these are the 5 sector programs: Blessed Tomorrow, Caring for Creation Today for Faith; Solution Generation, charting a new course on climate for higher education, future ready for communities, climate of wellness for health, and America knows how for business. Blessed Tomorrow launched about 45 days ago. Solution Generation is launching on September 19th, I think, and all of these programs will be out this year. So we do the brands, and to the right there, each of them will have a mobile app, but within there are success stories, there are resources for leading by example, for doing something about the problem, and resources for engaging others, peer-to-peer outreach, institution to stakeholder, and stakeholder to institution. We ground all that stuff in the lower left in research, and we're going to talk about one of the research things today, and then we provide a lot of outreach support to bring those to the public. The whole thing, again, is to get leaders to lead by example and engage others. We're trying to build institutional leadership and collective impact. And it's all built around a coalition document that we call the Path to Positive. It's vision, principles, and commitment that's very flexible, but it's like in immigration or in healthcare, when you get a large group of people working together, they have to work together toward a common vision and with the same principles. And we worked with Steve and a whole bunch of other people over the course of a year to refine this document as a statement of why America should engage in climate solutions. You can find most of the rationale for these things in background documents at the ecoamerica.org website and the momentous.org website, and then you can go to the blessedtomorrow.website and get a preview of what the real thing for faith and then what will be coming out for all the other sectors. What we're here to talk about today right now is something called the American Climate Values Survey 2014. Again, on the EcoAmerica website under research, you can download the findings. And there's two parts to it. One of them is demographic findings, which I'm not going to go into too much. They pretty much mirror the other findings. If you take Pew or Gallup or Six Americas, they pretty much mirror that with some twists. So I'm going to spend most of the time on the demographic findings, but I did want to point out, we do something that we ask. Our surveys are much broader than just asking about climate. We ask people about what they care about, faith and health and jobs in America and hobbies and who do they trust and what behaviors they do, and it creates these algorithms that enable us to associate values and concerns about climate change with leverage points, obstacles, and competing priorities, so we know how to market to people. If you're in a poll that tells you that 18% of Americans are concerned, that's a useful metric, but it doesn't really provide you with information to guide you on how to shift them to something else. It doesn't tell you who they are, what magazines they read, what other values they have, which is what the values work that we do does. But these things on the slide right now are consensus findings that over pretty much around 80% or more of Americans agree to or disagree with. And these things aren't things to really switch people's opinions on climate change, but they're ways to establish common ground with them. So like the blue things, there's still a big belief in American exceptionalism, and if you talk about America's able to do it, the green things on here are about basic pollution and the rights to nature. Americans, conservative or liberal, do not want to see polluted things coming out of a pipe, and they think that they have a right to spend time in nature, that they should be close to nature. And then there's another thing, the orange arrows in here is about responsibility. This has just been popping up. This is the fourth time we've done this survey, and the concept of responsibility is moving up toward the top, that people want somebody to do something about climate change, and they're looking for somebody to do it. They might not really understand that the whole thing about climate change right now is that it's a latent concern in society. It's a background concern, and it's kind of like back in 1970 when the first Earth Day happened. Back then there was no NRDC, there was no Greenpeace. The big environmental organizations were either exceptionally tiny or non-existent, but Americans noticed that their air was turning brown, that they could no longer put their kids in the water, in the river or the lake, and they rose up kind of themselves. And all of the impacts of climate change, the fires, the floods, the droughts they're changing the psyche of America right now in the same way. and so we can use all that to connect people to climate change. The one biggest thing by far in the politics of climate change, or in the demographics of the politics, this table comes from Gallup, and it basically, Democrats, 81% think it's real, 17% of them attribute a little bit more to Earth, but only 4% of Democrats think that climate change is not happening. On the right side, Republicans are really divided up into 4 distinct groups of almost equal size, but the biggest one is 25% of them say it's just not happening. The planet, we all experience the same weather, but the psychological dog whistle of liberalism and government regulation and all the things that conservative people don't like is so loud that it squeezes out the reality of even the weather around them. And anybody that's an adult in America has noticed that the climate has changed. So in our survey, politics produces the largest differences. Democrats recognize and report being effective. Independents used to side with Democrats on this issue. They now tend more closely with Republicans. That is not because independents have changed. It's because the Republican Party has become so fractured and polarized within itself that a lot of Republicans are now self-identifying more as independents. But everybody supports what you guys are all about, clean energy. And all of them, everybody that supports it believes that it is effective in stopping climate change. And just as a side note, the concept of free market incentives, and I'm not really clear on how many people really understand that concept, don't believe that free market incentives will be effective in solving climate change. So getting into then the demographic findings of this, we use, this is just a page from the report that you can download that shows, how we categorize stuff on climate change. These are the political questions, or the climate questions broken down by politics, which you can see online. But going to the psychographic findings, we use a technology called VALS, which you can go to your computer and you can type in VALS, and you can actually take the VALS survey, and you will be categorized in a consumer framework, which says, you have a primary motivation of ideals, achievement, or self-expression, and then you're either high resource or low resource. You're either healthy, you have enough money to be able to enjoy life a little bit more, you have a greater education. Those are high resource people, and then there's other people who have less resources. This schema breaks it down again for consumer purposes, and what it enables us to do is to connect with other values. There's a giant marketing database called the MIRS database, but when we identify people using VALS, we get really rich profiles of it, and again we can identify leverage points. So we've done a program called Nature Rocks on climate change, and it's not really, it's about, if you look at it, it's about getting kids out in nature. It's right now been taken over by the Walt Disney Company and the Nature Conservancy. It's a primary program for them, but it's really underlying it is the fact that women are more into climate change. The biggest leverage point of women with children is their children by far, and you can build a program around that to connect people with climate change. But it enables us to get marketing information for people so that we can market to them like that. And then they have each of these different categories evokes different kinds of people. Like believers are careful, literal, passive, and neighborly, whereas achievers, the people that are the keep up with the Joneses people, are private, moderate. They really are aspirational and hardworking. They really want to get ahead in the world. So we break it down like this, and each of these groups have different values of climate change. Only the innovators, which are the highest resource people in America, intellectually and otherwise, really buy into what we call the planetary destruction model of climate change. For many people, nature and the environment is their biggest concern is hunting habitat or just enjoying it outdoors or experiencing nature, in parks and public forests. But at any rate, getting into the findings, starting off with, we study different things, and this is Yale and Stanford versus Gallup and Pew, both of current data on what they say Americans think about climate change. And Yale and Stanford will tell you that a majority of Americans say that global warming should be a priority for the President and Congress, and they say it seems inappropriate to attribute lack of legislation to lack of public support. Whereas Gallup and Pew say that the American public ranks climate change lowest on their list of priorities, second to last, and therefore there is no public pressure, and that's why there is no support for legislation. So we look at that and we say, you know, what's really behind this? At the end of the day, they're both right in different ways. What we have found that, you know, that because we ask about behaviors, we ask a series of questions about, you know, how much you care about climate change. Like if you go take our survey, we ask, you know, there's like 8 or 9 questions that are asked. They sound repetitive, but there will be questions says, I think climate change is a hoax. I think climate change is, you know, the usual questions about is it real or is it caused by humans? We even had one this year that says, I believe that climate change is a hoax, and I tell people about that. So because we ask them the same question 6 or 7 different ways, we get to understand who really cares about climate change and who just says they do. So there's a whole bunch of people who say that they care about climate change, but only the people, if you have like a 5-point scale, only the people that say that I am strongly concerned or very concerned or taking action. Those are the people that Gallup and Pew are reporting about. Yale and Stanford are reporting on people who say they're concerned, and about half of the people who say that they're concerned really aren't doing anything. So the numbers that we actually come up with, people that are concerned and are taking action, are much closer to the Gallup and Pew numbers. But it's interesting to note that if you take surveys of the members and the public in your organization, the people that rank 5 on climate change do a whole spectrum of behaviors. They will give you money, they will participate in activist events. So you know, you can use this information to pick out the right supporters for your work. A second finding that we have is that benefits are essential for action on climate change. And you could even word this as solutions and benefits are. There's really a direct correlation in America of people who think that if we solve for climate change, there will be benefits. There will be health benefits. There will be economic benefits. We really will have more jobs. And but there are a lot of people who think that climate change is an issue and don't see benefits to it. And those people who don't see any benefits to it, that don't see benefits for themselves or for society, are the people who are just kind of saying it's an issue but not doing anything about it. They don't see penalties for not acting. They don't see benefits for acting. So we have to, you know, in everything we do, we have to emphasize more and more that there are solutions that have benefits for in a relevant way to people in communities around America, not big abstract benefits. A third thing is, and by the way, there are, in the American Climate Values 2014, there's about 20 of these findings, and I've just picked 6 or 7 here, and I'm presenting right now in this asynchronous way. But you can look at all of them in the report, and again, I hope to get done with this real soon so that we can talk about any of these. But another finding that we have that is Americans are afraid to stray, that they follow their tribes. You know, ostracism is an inherently conservative psychological state, and whether it's your family, your friends, your work environment, you do not want to be excluded. So what happens is that if you go into almost any group, any factory, any school, you will find that they lean toward one issue or another. You can profile them on climate change. And so what this tells us is that, you know, is that if you want to change Americans, you have to work to change groups of Americans, not individuals. You shouldn't be thinking about, I got to change, go from 37% to 39% or 42% of the public. You should be talking about institutions and communities, getting the leaders and the tribes to change. And then when you get the leaders and tribes to change, it creates a safe space for people within those tribes to feel that it's an important issue and act on it. Another one and this has been a persistent finding that we have, if it will pop up, is the concept of the American dream. You know, all of us have been taught since we have been children that if you get better grades in school, you will get to a better high school or a better college, you will get a better job, you will get a better spouse, more income, better vacations, healthier children, everything about it. And then, and that core group that I mentioned before, achievers, those people actually strongly resist any arguments about sacrifice and less. They think that that, you know, like when we go out with a movie like The Story of Stuff, most Americans, 65, 70% of Americans, don't really respond to that kind of thing, but there are a group that actually respond hostilely to that kind of message. So what we need to do, these guys have goalposts in front of them that they've been marching to. They've been playing by the rules. They see other people, and some of them wealthy politicians that have a lot more than they do, that have played by the rules and have gotten ahead. And they see us as saying we have to use less, consume less, and they feel like we're changing the rules after we've gotten ahead. So we associating change. They don't like change. They want to follow people, but they want to follow people that have the same values. But the main thing is, you know, if you say that, hey, it's not what we live, it's how we live. If we got our energy from clean energy sources, you know, we wouldn't be having the kind of problems we have. All we need to, if we don't change, you're going to have to change. So if we can get to renewables, we can maintain good lifestyles in America. We can get ahead. We can be competitive globally. But if we don't, we're going to have problems, and we're going to have to change. This next finding, one of the most hopeful things that's happening right now in America is, you know, we just are coming out of a period of climate silence. There's been a couple of years post-Copenhagen, post-Waxman Markey, where there was very little coverage and discussion of climate change in the news. It really picked up in 2013, double versus what it was in 2012. And in 2014, it is double to 4 times the amount of news coverage that's coming out on climate change right now. And for the first time in 5-6 years, we have a new bill that's been introduced in federal Congress on climate change, which is Congressman Chris Van Hollen in Maryland introduced the Healthy Climate and Family Security Act of 2014. Now, the thing that strikes us is, of course, when have you seen a climate bill that said family in it? This is basically a cap and dividend bill. And if you take a look at when we really start findings on this in February or March, we said that family is people are associating family values with climate change. We used to always do the prior finding that it's money, 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 but when you dig the next level deep, the reason why people want money, especially the achievers, is because that's how they take care of the family. The reason why they get an SUV or a nice SUV isn't to demonstrate how rich they are, it's to demonstrate how well they are taking care of the family, how good of a person they are. And so again, when we tell people don't do things that they think are taking care of their family, they don't look favorably on those. So we have to reach out to these people, and we have to promote benefits to them and enable them to understand that they will get that they can maintain their lifestyle and live if they address climate change. And there's only a couple more here of these. This one is called Competing Priorities, and the point here is that everybody in America does not put climate change at #1 on their list. And I can testify that I thought it was #1 on my list, and then I just became a grandparent 6 months ago, and there's a little girl named Ellie that would cause me to drop everything and go anywhere and do anything for her because she's the most wonderful little person in the world. But all of us, when we survey Americans at scale, nobody relates climate change as a top priority. There's very few small single digits that is a second priority. For most people, it's number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 down the line. Now, that might sound bad, but the really good part about that is that if somebody equates climate change with my granddaughter Ellie, I'm going to be emotionally engaged on climate change. And so that's what we have to do, is make sure that we understand their values, the Pew slide that I popped up earlier, and make sure that we associate climate solutions with those other values. Another one here that is, again, a recurring theme here is that if climate change is really this big, massive problem, why are we are conveying it in what we call feminine terms. That doesn't mean it's like female. It just means it's soft versus hard. We need to be displaying climate change like the pictures on the right, a guy with a beard and a hard hat, people risking their lives. If it is a really big problem with really big solutions, that's what you present. You don't show dainty little solutions for climate change. And another one of the psychographic findings from American Climate Values 2014 is the concept of what we call Techno Optimism. When you take a look at a whole lot of very important people in America and you say, how come you're not doing anything about climate change, let's say Warren Buffett or whatever, they fundamentally believe that America is a powerful, strong enough society, and the world is that we will come up with neighborhood nuclear. We will come up with ways to address it. This book here, Abundance, Peter Diamandis runs an organization called the X Prize, and he just goes, we're running out of water, we're, too much pollution, too much climate change. The whole book, he's a leading thinker for people that are innovators in technology and society. He's a leading thinker for that. He's the X Prize. He's telling us that we don't have to worry about it. That is a big problem for all of us who want to address climate change. So what we need to do here is, what we tell these people is that, hey, you're right. We can solve this problem. We have the innovation, we have the technology, but if we don't do something about it, we won't implement it. And this problem is categorically a little bit different from other problems. If there's some sort of thing about education, we can solve that over 10 or 20 years and recover from it. But if the North Pole melts, we'll never come back. So we do have the technology. You should be optimistic, but you really need to take action on the issue. Another thing that is holding us back is that a lot of people don't like environmentalists. We have watched, since we started doing this, we have watched people, we have asked a question about whether or not they are an environmentalist. That has gone down from the low 60% to the mid 30% since 2006 of Americans identifying themselves with environmentalists. They just don't like us. They see us as being people who have made it, that are holding other people back, and we are just plainly insulting to them. I used to think we were insulting to the leaders, but like this is a cover from Rolling Stone magazine and a cover from Business Week to leading national publications telling people that don't get climate change that they're stupid. Now, I don't. It's not an effective strategy with climate change. It's not a strategy with anything. If you want to win people over to your side, to start out telling them, you're an idiot, I want you to do what I think. So we have to be very careful with arguments like 97% of American scientists believe that, because the underlying message is that if you don't believe that, therefore you are stupid. So we have to be careful with those kinds of messages. There's another concept here. These are two emerging things that are happening. As many of us realize that we cannot mitigate all climate change, we're switching towards something that some people call adaptation. We have a finding that says don't use the word adaptation because that means wearing more T-shirts and tank tops in the summer, as opposed to it's a passive term. That doesn't, but everybody knows that prepare is emergency preparedness. I have to do something now at a local level and a personal level. So we advise leaving the word adaptation out and using the word preparedness. And then there is a group of Americans, the people that hold traditional values, white-collar workers, blue-collar workers, the stable base of Americans. Those people really are into preparedness, and you can use those arguments right now to tell them that they and we need to take practical steps now to to do something about climate change. So preparedness doesn't work for everybody, but it works for those people. And then we asked a bunch of questions about climate and health and climate and weather, thinking that everybody gets it because of all the storms and droughts. And, you know, when they hear about the storms and droughts, pardon me, they are not hearing from their weathermen yet. There's a lot of people that are out there working on this, but they're not associating most of the storms and floods and droughts and fires with climate change. 90+% of all the stories on television and newspapers that are talking about the floods and droughts are not mentioning climate change right now, so not making that connection. And then all the health things from asthma to ticks and that are you know, the biggest public health threat facing America today, according to the American Public Health Association, is climate change. But people are not making those connections either. Now, the only implication of this is that, you know, if you say climate and weather, you should always be prepared to, you know, provide an example that of the scale on climate change. Or if you say climate and health, you always should provide an example on that. Just don't assume that Americans get it. And then, so the summary takeaways from this are, you know, like, don't be fooled by polls that tell you America really get it. You have to get strongly, go for it strongly, emphasize solutions, benefits, and success stories. People focus on the people side of the issues, engage groups of them, connect with family values. You know, we tell people, you know, to do a search and replace on their computer right now and eliminate the word science and replace it with the word fact. If you've got a document, you know, you don't talk about the science of the North Pole melting, you talk about the fact of the North Pole melting. Now, and then, you know, you got to be careful to not belittle people. And then there's number 9 on here. We skipped some of them in the few slides that we had above. But when people buy into climate change, whether it's because the forests are dying or the polar bears are dying or because they all of a sudden are having nuisance floods in daylight times in Miami, whatever causes you to buy into climate change, when you buy into any one part of it, you buy into the entire package. So you always want to find the best leverage point there. So these are just summary takeaway from the other slides, and then I just want to talk about one other thing that we've got going on here right now, which was what we call a Community Catalyst Program. We're pulling together all of these sector programs like Blessed Tomorrow and Climate of Wellness, and we're engaging major national organizations, mainstream organizations, like we have the former Surgeon General of the United States, we have the head of the American Public Association, the head of the American Psychological Association, all these big national health organizations. We're bringing them together under a common program on climate change right now called Climate of Wellness. Momentous, this Momentous program that this is all bundled under, is based on 2 different concepts. One of them is a theory of what it's called social identification, that people decide in groups and follow leaders. The second thing is a concept of collective action and collective impact. How do you really get that? One way we do it is by getting these groups of national organizations to participate in a common program. The other way we do it is in communities. So our community's brand is Future Ready, and we had just a meeting of 38 organizations in Los Angeles a week ago Friday, and the basic pitch is this. We go up to the mayor of Los Angeles, who actually does really care about climate change, and say, you want to do something, we'd like you to convene a meeting with 6 of your leading health care facilities and the things, 5 businesses, 7, whatever you want. We want you to get together a group of people to talk about it. And oh, by the way, we want you to take the 62 communities around Los Angeles, and we want you to invite all of their mayors and tell their mayors and their county heads to bring their health, higher education, faith, business leaders together in a common meeting. Get 500, 600, 700 people together at one time. And then for a day-long discussion on climate change. And then what happens is that when they get done with that meeting, we want them to go back out to the communities. These are local let's say, health organizations in Los Angeles to go back out there, and the programs give them not just our programs we consider to be hubs to other programs. So if you go to Blessed Tomorrow, you won't see Momentous or Eco America on it anywhere. You will see various Christian organizations, the United Church of Christ, the Disciples of Christ, Jewish organizations. You'll see the North American Islamic Associations. There's 14 or 16 national faith-based organizations listed at the bottom as co-partners in the program. And so what will happen is that after you get inspired by the group, then hopefully you will go out and go to these programs and get the resources and tools. You will empower yourself to take action. So with that, I think I'm going to turn this back over to Chris or somebody to moderate any kind of questions or discussions. Thanks for listening, and sorry again for the asynchronous communication here.
Great. Thank you so much, Bob. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask, please feel free to go ahead and chat those in on the question box in the toolbox on the right-hand side of the screen. So we're going to go ahead and get into the audience questions here. So let's start with kind of the high-level overview of those 12 takeaway lessons. Are those ranked in order of strength or effectiveness, or do you find that some of those key takeaways are more significant than others for climate action advocates?
A, they are not in order of importance. B, order of importance varies by who you are talking to, by which group of audience. Like on some people, like the concept of not ready to abandon the American dream or family first is the most important thing. On other things, presenting, like with Techno Optimists, presenting them with the fact that, hey, we do have the solutions, but we have to take action is the most important things. So we have grouped them here. Again, you can download the report, which is on the screen right now, ACD 2014, and you'll see they're bundled into two findings. One of them is the findings from our prior reports, and then from the research that we just released this year. So there's two groups of them there. This mixes those two groups together in just a form that kind of presents a good way to go through them. So that's the way it is.
Okay, great. Okay, now have you found that there are certain ways to encourage people to become more engaged in advocating for solutions to climate change? I'm talking about not that 8 to 10%, but other folks. And if so, how much do those methods of getting folks engaged vary or stay consistent across demographic groups?
We think in general there's two things that right now that there's, again, a lot of latent concern about climate change. And the two things you have to do is you have to inspire people. You have to, and the way that you have to do that is by connecting with where they are. So if you're in a church or in a town, or you should have a whole lot of examples that relate specifically to them, and then you have to give them success stories. You have to show them that you find other churches, schools that are like them, and say this is what they're doing and the benefits of addressing climate change. And in a general sort of sense, you always have to lead from a position of integrity yourself. You always have to be able to say that I'm doing this. But so, at any rate, some are more effective with one demographic group, of others, again, it depends upon the group that you're talking about. Like if you wanted to bring up a specific group and say, like, how would I address the business community in Charleston, North Carolina? That would be a radically different type of presentation for us than going out and addressing, let's say, the faith community in Birmingham, Alabama. The exact same presentation delivered to both would be suboptimal for either. And then if you took the faith presentation to the business community or the business presentation to the faith community, it might actually turn people off because it just doesn't relate to where they're at. So knowing your audience, start with people, is like the most important thing. And just to, Chris, for just a half a second here, there's a guide in the Eco America website that's called the 13 Steps to Climate Communication. And it starts off with start with people, stay with people. But when you talk to people, that's the first thing you always do. The second thing you should always do when you're talking about climate change is express ambivalence. And that doesn't mean doubt but if you come out and say climate change if you don't relate to people up front and you say climate change is real, it's a big problem and we have to deal with it, you turn everybody off out where there's no space for them. You haven't related to them, you haven't created a space for them. So the second thing that you'll see on that guide is to express ambivalence. So you say, hey, the second thing is connect on values. First it's start with people, connect on values, express ambivalence. And so you can connect on values by saying, I don't think America's going in the right direction, or I don't think my community is doing this, but find something that 90% of the room that's significant, that 90% of the people will agree with. And then the third thing you always have to say is, and some people believe this, and some people believe something else. And then the fourth thing is go to personal experience, but from what I can see. And if you do that, we do all these dial tests with literally 1,000 people. And if you get people to dial up at the beginning and keep them high, you can keep your audience and you can deliver a lot of messages to them. If you start out without relating to them and confrontationally, they will dial down and you will never get them back. You'll watch them walking out of the back of the room and just saying, this isn't for me. So technique is very important, and that 13-step guide is for whatever audience you're working on is very important.
Okay, great. That was really helpful. And now I have a question from myself for you about that. We had a webinar last year, maybe 2 years ago actually, on values-based engagement, and our speaker there said a lot of that kind of similar material, establish common ground with someone so that they have a trust and reason to have goodwill for you. Now, are you talking about leading with those types of values, or like those common values and then kind of your language? Are you talking about over the space of say an article that you're writing, or a conversation that you're having, or a presentation that you're giving, or is this a transformation that happens over the course of multiple conversations and building a relationship with that person?
Well, again, it's in some of the more details of these reports, but a lot of people think that that just saying that something is common sense is pejorative to them. They think, again, you're telling them that you're stupid. So we never tell people that it's just common sense to deal with climate change. The expression, we're all in this together, works exceptionally well with progressives and Democrats. With the farther to the right that you are on the spectrum, the more loyalty-based and exclusive you are, and then they are not in this all together. So if you're trying to get to conservatives, you don't go out and say, we're all in this together, because they know that there's this gang of people led by this guy called Obama that's doing a bunch of things that are destroying America, and I'm not with them. So you have to be very careful about arguments that connect with them. So then you take it to your point, Chris, on common values. For me, the common values is always their values, and it becomes kind of hard if you're on a radio program with a broad audience. You can still kind of zero in, and you can know what that announcer is, and know that the people that are, if it's a faith-based radio program, but you really, I would not worry about common values in a huge sense. I'd worry about it in terms of the values of the audience that you're trying to move toward climate solutions.
Okay, great. Okay, here's a good question around the idea of myths. Can you mention, are there any specific myths, maybe one or two myths, that need to be busted in order for climate action to really come into its golden age?
Okay. Myths is a great thing because most of us live by myths. We all create the myths that support our own version of reality. If you ask 80% of Americans where they live is a great place to live, if it's the best place to live, almost everybody thinks, if you're in Asheville, if you're in Long Beach, if you're there and you believe that that's really one of the best places in the world to live because you live there. So with all that, with our job, with our family, with our faith, with our political party, with everything that we do, we always think that what we are doing is good and right. That's creation of myths about yourself. It's not looking at it objective reality. So almost everything about climate change that people are dealing with is a myth, not reality. That's why science-based arguments don't work. If you care more about, freedom and democracy and prosperity, then you're going to automatically. There's a professor at Yale who has presented Wall Street Journal readers, business owners, with more information on climate change, and to the extent it conflicts with their myths, they actually, even though they get more information on climate change, they come out at the end believing in it less. So, so the question is is there one or two big myths? I think the myths that people have cause them to ignore it, not to build up like a factual myth. But there is, like in the business community, the people that don't believe in climate change will tell you the same thing over and over again. That and it's still that things like it's just a cycle and it's not a problem. That but at any rate, those kind of myths, like I was just with an investment banker in Los Angeles when I was there a couple of weeks ago, and he started reeling off this stuff about why he isn't concerned and why he isn't doing anything. And I listened very respectfully. I said, a lot of people believe that, and I don't know who you trust for your information on stuff. But then I said, but if you go to your college and university or any government, any college and university, any scientific organization in the world, and you say, what do they say about climate change? They're just not going to agree with you. So you can, with a business guy that deals in the world with facts, if you do it the right way, present facts against myths. But for the most of the time, you should just accept people's myths and say that Charleston is the best place in the world to live, lead with their myth, and then relate what you want them to do to that myth. And if you really care about Charleston, so I would not, except for the direct opposition things to climate change, I like to deal with people's myths as positive things.
That's great. I love that perspective. Just a reminder for folks, we have about 5 more minutes. If you have any more questions to submit, you can go ahead and put those in in the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen. So here is a question about Techno Optimism. This is a comment and a question. The curse of Techno Optimism is real. There seems to be a hesitation of people to accept renewable energy now because of some perception of cost or environmental risk in hopes of a perfect solution that is just right around the corner. How can we succinctly say that the perfect need not be the enemy of the good?
That's a very specific question. And I would say, just like whoever typed out that question said, the perfect need not be an enemy of the good. And I'm not sure what else to say about that. If you were talking to me, I'd ask a clarifying question.
Yeah. Well, I think that, let's go with that then. The perfect need not be the enemy of the good. Okay.
I don't think, you're not going to come up, that is an argument that's very specific, related to some particular thing, and it's probably very effective in some cases. I'm just not sure, which or how we're trying to apply it here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You mentioned rewards in a few places. Can you elaborate on what those rewards might look like?
Well, I think a better word than rewards is actually benefits. Like if you tell people that if you want to preserve your standard of living and have the opportunity to get ahead, that you will switch to renewable energy. Like there's an example that I just heard yesterday about, there's a community in San Antonio called the Chestnut Street Community, and everybody in the community has solar power and smart homes. And there was an interview, and I'm trying to get this so I can use it, where a couple said, hey, we have an electric car, our house is powered by electricity, we power our house and our car, all the energy we need for air conditioning to drive our car, and it's cost us $36 last year, not last month, last year, but they're paying $3 a month because there's so much sun and they're all electricity, and it just covers all of their use. So I do think that there's a lot of very powerful stories that you can use out there that can convince people that are benefits on climate change, and you have to really present benefits in really tangible ways for people. You present solutions and benefits as powerfully as you can. The graphs that I showed at the beginning of this presentation about, for people on this call, they see those graphs, they will remember them in their brain for a long, long time, because that's, at the level that they're thinking, that's real benefits, 30% reduction in emissions, higher than average economic growth rate. That's why I actually am following some of our technology. Like I say, you start with solutions and benefits. That's why at the beginning of my presentations, even though people might really, really kind of know that, when they see the graphs and get it, they get it much better. So, go for rewards, solutions, benefits, make them real, put as much of them as you can in everything you write, say, and do.
Great. Okay, you mentioned the success of British Columbia's revenue-neutral carbon tax and rebate program. Do you have any data on the public perception of that program or other similar programs?
I don't, and that's really a great question, and we should get it. But I suspect that is a self-reinforcing positive feedback mechanism. That what will happen is because they do that, and then everybody in the community will realize that their utility bills, their utility bills might be going up a little bit, but probably going down, because if the cost went up 10 or 15% and the usage went down, the utility bills go down, and then all of a sudden I forget how British Columbia is rebating the money back to people. But they get that, and then the next time somebody says, hey, we want to put a price on pollution or a price on extraction of a natural resource and distribute it back to the people, are going to, just like Alaska with the Alaska Permanent Fund, they have if you walk into that state and say, hey, we're going to do this and give money back to you, they get it. So I don't know. I'm going to check that out, but I suspect it's a very positive thing.
Great. Okay, well, we are right about at the hour, so I will just end with one last question about Momentous for you, and then we'll wrap it up. What is next with the American Climate and Value Survey? Is there going to be a survey for 2015 or future years, or what are the next steps here?
We oversampled Asian Americans, African Americans, and Hispanic Americans, and we oversampled some certain sectors and what we call sectors and themes like faith and health. So on American Climate Values 2014, and it's out in peer review right now, we're going to be releasing a set of supplemental reports that explain that. We are also doing, there's two other things that are in peer review right now. One of them is a guide that we are producing with the Cred Center at Columbia University, which is the most comprehensive synthesis of everything that's been known about climate change. It's a very dense document right now. It's like an academic document, but we'll put together a guide for it. That'll be coming out in 4 or 5 weeks. And we're about to start a big climate communications research thing where we will do a dozen or more focus groups, 1,000 people in 40 groups of 25 and dial tests, and then we'll take it out to a survey to spread it by demographics. But that will enable us to test specific messages with all different kinds of people. We'll be able to come up with a guide, like when you ask what would work best for this group, like let's say what would work best for a faith community, we hope to say these are what we think the 12 or 15 best messages are for that community. So we've got a lot more research coming out, and then we're rolling out these programs. And you go to the momentous.org website, you can sign up at the bottom of that, and then you'll get a newsletter every 4 to 6 weeks that'll tell you what we're doing and how to connect.
Okay, great. Well, we're going to have to wrap it there. Thank you so much, Bob. This is a really great session, and thank you all to those of you who have attended and listened and chimed in with great questions. We have recorded today's presentation, and it will be available on the webinar archive page of the SACE website at cleanenergy.org. And you will also be receiving a follow-up email with a link to the recording in the days to come. So thank you again, and we hope you will all join us next time. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Hughes. Bye. Okay, there you go.